Hi, Sam. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here, Lisa.
Lachlan Murdoch has finally secured control of his family's sprawling media empire in a multi-billion-dollar settlement with his siblings. The Fin podcast has covered this succession battle and the court dispute over control of this media business in past episodes, and we thought it important to update the breaking news. So we managed to steal media writer Sam Buckingham-Jones away from his desk to tell us what's going on. So last time you were on, you were telling us about the court battle in Nevada over the family trust, who would have control. Rupert wanted Lachlan to have control. The other siblings weren't happy with that. Tell us what's happened today. What's going on?
So at 6 a.m. Sydney time this morning, it was announced via a joint press release via Fox Corporation, which owns Fox News in the US, and News Corp, which owns, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Post, the Australian, the Daily Telegraph, the Times of London, this, sprawling media empire that Rupert built over decades, both announced that this court battle had been settled. Mm-hmm. So all of the siblings had reached an agreement, and that agreement would involve Lachlan paying more than $1 billion US to each of those siblings. That's Prudence, Elizabeth and James, to buy their stake out.
Over $3 billion in total.
3.3 billion US dollars, 5 billion Australian dollars to buy them out so that these companies that they have their entire life been a part of would no longer be a part of their life. They have to relinquish all their shares, they have to sell them, and they're not allowed to buy back in.
Mm-hmm. So that's final. Tell us how it's structured, because I understand there'll be a new family trust.
There will be a few trusts involved actually in this. The governance problem really stemmed from the Murdoch Family Trust, MFT as it's called in all these legal documents, which gave Rupert 4 votes and his 4 eldest children 1 vote each. You can see the maths problem there though already, in that when Rupert dies, those 4 votes disappear. And the fear was that Elizabeth, Prudence and James would gang up on Lachlan and vote him out. And him being the chosen successor, he was the one who Rupert anointed in September 2023 to take over both Fox Corporation and News Corporation, that they would be able to vote him out of the trust and he would be out of those companies. That level of risk, that level of uncertainty is too much for 2 publicly listed companies to bear, and that's what forced Rupert and Lachlan to intervene to try and change the terms of this trust. They failed at that. They took that to court in Reno, Nevada, and the commissioner sent it back and said this is nothing but a blatant attempt to try and change terms of a trust that weren't allowed to be changed. So the settlement essentially creates a new trust for Prudence, for James and for Elizabeth, and each of those trusts will take a large parcel of their shares in Fox and News Corp, which they will then have to sell. They weren't able to sell the shares that the trust held prior to that. So they're selling this portion of shares on the public market, and they're selling a large number of those shares back to Lachlan. So this is the way that Lachlan retains control. He basically buys their shares from them, and a portion of them go to the public market, which is how each of them get their $1.1 billion.
And we should mention the other trust and Rupert's other 2 children with Wendy Deng. They will be in another trust with Lachlan.
They will be, yes. It'll be called the LGC Family Trust. So it's a little bit unclear. They think they might even have their own trusts, but they're all controlled by Rupert, essentially. They put all their shares into one kitty, and Lachlan has control over those. And so essentially, the youngest 2 siblings here, Rupert's youngest 2 daughters, that's Grace and Chloe, his daughters with Wendy Deng, his 3rd of 5 wives, is quite a lot to keep up with here. It really did inspire the TV show Succession.
Yes.
They have essentially thrown their support and their lot in with Lachlan. He has made a big bet on himself. He's taken out a loan of $1 billion US dollars to buy his siblings out, and he's betting that his leadership of Fox and News will pay dividends.
And to be clear, Grace and Chloe's interest is financial. They won't have any control.
Grace and Chloe were both economic members of the Murdoch Family Trust with no votes.
For the 3 older children, this is a clean break from the business. As you said, under this deal, they have to sell their shares. So it ensures that the various outlets that you've mentioned, Fox News, the New York Post, the Wall Street Journal, they will remain conservative after Rupert's death. Rupert is 94. Was that the main aim here?
I think that's definitely a consideration. I think that James certainly has made no secret of his disdain for Fox News, especially after the January 2021 riots at the US Capitol. Lachlan politically is completely aligned with this Fox and News Corp element, which is perhaps more conservative. Not all of the outlets are as conservative as others, but the argument essentially is that this is the best for business. Being this conservative, Fox is the dominant cable news network in the US by quite some margin. And the same goes for the other media assets. Essentially, the argument is this benefits all of the children by being politically conservative in their media coverage.
And as you said, Sam, this ends a bitter legal dispute for the family. Is there any feeling that the family relationships can now be repaired?
Oh, look, the people I've spoken to have said no. These two parties, these two sides of this bitter legal dispute are essentially where the family leaves it. I'm told that the 3 that got paid out are not on speaking terms with their dad and don't speak to Lachlan either. So in one sense, it's actually a really sad family story of power corrupts, but absolute power corrupts absolutely. They've been splintered in such a way that, you find yourself wondering, would you take $1.1 billion to never speak to your father again?
And Sam, finally, how do you see the media empire changing under Lachlan Murdoch?
I think if anything, this settlement virtually guarantees it won't change. I think this essentially solidifies the way that it's been running for recent years into the future. The great uncertainty here is you have a 94-year-old family patriarch who still commands incredible power and respect at that age. Donald Trump launched a lawsuit against News Corp over some of their recent reporting. He didn't name Lachlan in that lawsuit. He named Rupert. So he goes straight to the person he believes is in power. I mean, one of the things that comes out of this is that Rupert has relinquished control of this media empire that is described as the most powerful media empire ever built. What this essentially means is that after 70 years building the Murdoch empire, there is a new Sun King. There is a new person in charge, and that person is unequivocally going to be Lachlan.
Thanks, Sam.
Thanks, Lisa.
The Australian Financial Review.